Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Wild times in the heavyweight division. Obviously, Joseph Parker was meant to face Daniel Dubois. Dubois is out. Has illness. Martin Bakole, at a day's notice, sitting on the couch in Africa, takes the fight. As I record this video, he's only just arrived in Saudi Arabia. He missed the weigh-in. Joseph Parker has weighed in. So we'll talk about that because Parker, a career heaviest. Obviously, that brings up a number of talking points. But Bakole taking the fight at a day's notice, effectively, day and a half. This is, really as the co-main event and saving it with a big-name fight with relevance, divisional relevance. Yeah, this is credit to both men. You've had Joseph Parker saying that he was more than happy to take this fight and welcomes the challenge. He says Martin Bakole is one of the best in the world and he's happy to fight him. Bakole online has also welcomed the fight. And let's face it, Martin Bakole has been wanting opportunities. One of the most avoided heavyweights in recent years. We all know the gym stories that have followed him around the United Kingdom. So he was meant to be fighting in May. So Turki El Sheikh had announced recently that he would be facing F.A. Ajagba on a card that would be in May. Obviously, he's taken this one at short notice. Who knows what will happen with that? Probably dependent on how this fight goes. But Parker, he has weighed in. So you've got him 267 pounds. Career heaviest by almost 12 pounds. So previously, Parker's career heaviest was the Joe Joyce fight, 255 and a quarter pounds. And as we know, he got knocked out in that one in the 11th round. And effectively, after a couple of rounds, he was out of gas. But this is a different version of Joseph Parker, as Team Parker call it. Joseph Parker himself has described himself during fight week as bigger, faster, stronger. And you look at Parker here, remember he's 6'3", 6'4", 267 pounds on the dot. He doesn't look out of shape at all. The last year or so, since his win against Deontay Wilder, prior to that, obviously Zhang Jilei, George Lockhart, who's in his training setup, strength and conditioning, they've been talking about wanting to build Parker up, to get him some extra mass. Remember, it does seem that Joseph Parker, with his decision wins over Zhang, over Wilder, it felt like that had held him back, and the Saudis weren't putting him in necessarily against guys quicker than that. This is his first fight in a year because of the decisions. That's what it seemed like from the outside looking in. And Parker has admitted that he needs to bring the knockouts, that he wants to deliver the entertainment. And 6 months or more or so, there were some statements made by Parker and Lockhart that they wanted to pack on some pounds in terms of muscle and functional and really make him a unit and deliver more power. And obviously that was going to translate, they thought, in the ring. And this remains to be seen, because we have seen in the past Joseph Parker, he has put on weight previously, and it hasn't necessarily always paid off. There were different fights where he's put on a different amount of weight. The timing's been off. The speed has been slower. And say the Joyce fight, for example, the gas tank went to zero pretty quickly. So I know there have been some people trying to explain away previous performances. Well, the proof will be in the pudding. But I think this is based off what we've seen in the past year, because Joseph Parker has effectively been training full time. He was waiting for opportunities, potentially September, December. They never came. He took this opportunity with Daniel Dubois when it came up, and he's grasped it with both hands to face Martin Bakole. And let's face it, Bakole, coming off the couch, not in training camp, he might have been doing a little bit of basic work, just sort of keeping himself busy. But that's very different to a full-on training camp, 8-10 weeks, whatever the case may be. Parker's been through that. But not only before that, Parker had been keeping himself pretty much in the best shape of his career since his last fight almost a year ago. So that could be, you could say, potentially advantage Joseph Parker. So 267. Bakole, he will weigh in later. So he is in Saudi Arabia right now. At the weigh-in, you had Frank Warren sort of standing in for Martin Bakole. Did actually give him a playful push. Parker has spoken about wanting this fight, saying he's got huge respect for Martin Bakole, how dangerous he is, and he just says he wants the best in the biggest fights. And great attitude. He has been very confident in fight week. I know there has been some people talking about Daniel Dubois with this illness and saying potentially has he, sort of found a way out of this fight. I mean, Frank Warren actually has been, I'll just find it, where is it here? We'll come back to these other ones. He's, as this post here says, he's been raging at accusations of Daniel Dubois faking illness. I think we have to take it at face value. Daniel Dubois is the most confident that he's been in his career. The sort of 12 to 18 months that he's had, why wouldn't he be? So I take this at face value. Parker Dubois was going to be a very good fight. And you could say with Martin Bakole jumping in here, for both guys, there's risks. And people might say, should Joseph Parker have just waited? Well, he's already been waiting a year. There was not a lot happening for several months last year where his name was not really being mentioned. So I think Parker, he'll want the action, the activity to take the paycheck. I'm sure it's going to be paying very well in the millions of dollars. This is a fight that obviously he's put in a lot of time and effort, blood, sweat and tears to get ready for. Martin Bakole, a different opponent, but not so different that, you have Bakole with a very good jab like Daniel Dubois, heavy hands, both the left and the right, like Daniel Dubois. So it's maybe not quite like for like, but there are some similarities. In terms of Martin Bakole's trainer, Billy Nelson, he, as of a couple of hours ago, was on his way to Saudi Arabia. You've had Martin Bakole himself posting a video onto his social media from Kinshasa to Saudi Arabia to fight. See you tonight. At the time of recording, he'd only just been there an hour or so. But Billy Nelson says, what an absolute crazy last 3 hours. Martin Bakole avoids nobody. And there was one of the comments on one of the posts that I read that said, has boots will travel. And really, that is the truth. Martin Bakole, you got to give him a huge amount of respect for taking this fight at 1.5 days, 2 days notice and coming all the way. He wasn't even in Saudi Arabia. He wasn't there to watch. And, he's been in Kinshasa, in the heart of Africa. Obviously, he was going to be soon having a training camp for what was meant to be an FA Ajagba fight. So huge credit for Martin Bakole, who after his fight with Jared Anderson proved to the world in the heavyweight division that he was really dangerous. We all knew that he was a much avoided heavyweight, and he proved why against Anderson. And the style matchup for this one's going to be interesting, but we'll come to that soon. But here's a little post. Martin Bakole says, I'll shock the world tomorrow. You have Martin Bakole saying, no one wants to fight me, but with His Excellency, I can get any fight I want. And this is something Martin Bakole believes now, that he's in the tent. And remember, Turki El Sheikh, he does put a premium on knockouts, on entertainment. And Martin Bakole is one of these guys who, in the normal course of events, doesn't necessarily bring a lot of money in of himself. But if that's not a problem because the Saudis are stumping up the money, they're paying the opponent's purse and that sort of stuff, those factors go away. What he does do is he brings a huge amount of danger and obviously as well big punches, knockouts, and we saw what he could do with Jared Anderson. And this fight too will have something on the line. So Parker was meant to be facing Dubois for the IBF belt, the full belt, but he will now be defending his WBO interim title. So post here, the WBO will sanction Parker versus Bakole for the interim title at Saturday's last Crescendo event in Riyadh. The winner will become the World Boxing Organization mandatory challenger for Usyk. And this post here, obviously I mentioned before, Frank Warren raging at the discussion that has sort of emerged that potentially Daniel Dubois didn't want it and pulled out of this because of other reasons other than illness. So make of it what you will. But in terms of Joseph Parker, the first thing I would say, getting back to the weigh-in, 267 pounds, he looks in good shape. He doesn't look fat. He looks like he has put on muscle. It looks like what they have done They've done very intentionally like they said they were going to do. And if you've seen some of the training clips in the past year, Parker has been really grinding hard in the gym. He's been on his diet. He's been working very hard with George Lockhart, his strength and conditioning trainer, and also Andy Lee. They've had several periods where they've been coming together for little mini camps, and not necessarily Parker left to his own devices for months at a time. Previously, Parker had been earlier in his career not as consistent, but as he's matured, 33 years old now, he has obviously learnt the lesson that he needs to stay in shape and stay ready, and so he doesn't have to get ready. So it's really about fine-tuning when he comes into training camp. So when you consider that Parker has had a full camp, he's been on it for quite a while in terms of staying on his diet, staying in condition, and you have him facing Martin Bakole, who's effectively coming off the couch, wasn't in a camp. Might have been ticking over a little bit with activity, but he is missing a full camp here. I mean, you could sort of say there's never a better time for Joseph Parker to get Martin Bakole, to catch him short of preparation that he just hasn't had because he's a late stand-in opponent. But for Martin Bakole, he's the sort of guy that we saw against someone like Jared Anderson. He can come in at basically 300 pounds and still let his hands go and hit and hurt his opponent, drop him and take him out. And previously we've seen versions of Martin Bakole where he's been anything from around 250 pounds, to close to 300 pounds, and he's just been effectively doing the same things, being very effective. Those long punches, that very heavy jab, the uppercut, and that's going to be a weapon for Martin Bakole in this fight because, that, as we saw against Jared Anderson, if you're looking to fight in close or the mid-range, Martin Bakole with those long levers can get off uppercuts, both left and right hands. So he's very adept at working in close. I mean, I think the only time I've thought in the past 6 or 7 years since Martin Bakole lost that fight to Michael Hunter, where he was really not having the sort of success we've seen in some other fights, was against Sergey Kuzmin. But Kuzmin, notoriously durable. Joseph Parker has got quite a bit of durability himself, but he's not a big power puncher. And the fact that he's stacked on this extra mass, he's a career heaviest by 12 pounds. I mean, if Martin Bakole is pushing the pace, and remember, to a large extent, boxing at any level is partly, and especially the professional level, is a work rate sport. And Martin Bakole likes to throw punches. He likes to exert pressure on his opponents. And we saw against Joe Joyce, Joyce just kept coming, and Parker was a career heaviest at that point, a then career heaviest 255. And he gassed out pretty quickly, and Joyce just ground him down. Are we going to see something similar there? I mean, one of the things previously, as I noted earlier, when Parker has stacked on extra beef previously, maybe it hasn't quite worked out for him. The gas tank hasn't been as full. Also, you have a situation where the timing sometimes has been off, and it hasn't necessarily led to anything in terms of extra punching power. Parker doesn't have any knockouts at the world level. So this is a case, I think it's a bit of a gamble to some extent to put on this extra mass when Parker's not necessarily a big power puncher to start with. I would have thought that after seeing the Anderson fight, Martin Bakole opponents would be looking to box and move. Similar, I guess, to some way that Michael Hunter, fought him in the end of, 2018, where he was sort of in and out. He was boxing and moving and having success that way. I think Martin Bakole just generally is much better now than he was, 6 or 7 years ago. But Joseph Parker, what's the strategy going to be? Because I don't think he can just sort of really afford to stand and trade with Martin Bakole, because he will get knocked out if he tries to do that. And if he is a little down on speed, or the timing's off, or if he runs out of gas after half a dozen rounds, Martin Bakole will be there. I don't know if I see Joseph Parker necessarily knocking him out in terms of just head punches or anything like that. If he is going to stop him, he's going to have to take advantage of Martin Bakole not having a camp. He's going to have to really, I think, chop the tree down and work the body. That's got to be something surely that they're going to be thinking as a path to success, is really working to the body. You'd have to think Martin Bakole, ample body, but as we saw against Jared Anderson, he was eating up shots to the body for fun. It didn't look like it was phasing him. So it's going to be interesting to see what Parker brings. I mean, regardless, he was coming in heavy for Daniel Dubois. And one of the things, the question marks I've had is, was that smart? Is that something? But if he has, as he says, bigger, faster, stronger, and he's found a balance, as he said, during fight week, and George Lockhart has said their base of fitness is much better than it's been in the past, well, there's, I guess, a lot of known unknowns, as you would say. But if you're ever going to get Martin Bakole, now's the time for him being unprepared effectively. He has come into this on a day and a half's notice. So this, there's probably never a better time to actually get him. What shape he turns up in, and obviously ahead of the fight and on the broadcast, we'll probably hear what he's weighed in at. If he weighs in somewhere like 320, 330 or something like that, I think people will be thinking, okay, well, what's going to happen? Is Bakole going to run out of gas? But it's going to be a very tough fight. This is two legitimate top 10s, Martin Bakole and Joseph Parker. Full credit to both. Bakole taking this at such short notice. What guts. Going for glory. Joseph Parker happy to take the opportunity, and he says he wants to fight the best, and now he's going to prove it. Both these guys are trying to prove their place in the heavyweight division. Winner will take home the interim WBO title. Bakole says he will shock the world, and he will pick up the mandatory for Usyk if he does. Joseph Parker, he wants to maintain position. Obviously, if he beats Bakole, it's a massive win. It's a massive feather in his cap, and probably the Dubois fight would be rescheduled. How do you see this one going? I mean, kind of myself, I'm edging just because of Martin Bakole being such a big bully, that if he's able to fight similar to the way that Joe Joyce was able to fight, exerting pressure, keep coming, work the jab, wear him down. Remembering as well, Joseph Parker is a fighter, and across his career, and I think people forget this, he fights in bursts. Someone like a Joe Joyce and I think someone like a Martin Bakole, he doesn't allow you to have a lot of breaks, will exert a lot of mental pressure. How will Parker respond? The bigger version of Parker, how's the gas tank going to respond? As I say, known unknowns. But also, at the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no better time to get Martin Bakole at a day's notice for Joseph Parker. This could be the best opportunity to get a win over him. And Bakole, he's taken it with both hands. Parker as well. Let's bring it on. Parker, Bakole, what do you make of it all? Who's going to win, and how do you see this playing out? Are there any other factors at play here that will sort of feature in this fight? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.